most famous marshal was long-haired Jim Courtright. Well, I'm Fort Worth's second most famous marshal. I'm short-hair John Wainwright. Now, being from Fort Worth, I know a bit about Texas history. The war between the states had devastated the southern economy. About the only money anyone had was worthless Confederate currency. One fella found out, made pretty good wallpaper. But Texas had an advantage not shared by other southern states. Millions of longhorn cattle roam wild across our prairies, worth only $1 or $2 a head in Texas. A longhorn could command a price of $40 in the northern markets. Thus began the era of the great cattle drives from Texas up the trail to the Kansas railheads. Now we're gonna do a little skit for you. It's called Cattle Drive at a Crossroads. The setting is the legendary Chisholm Trail. One night in the 1880s, at a watering hole near where Yukon, Oklahoma would be located. The scenes that you're about to see, well, it just might have happened. Not so very far from here, back when this area was mostly open prairie.
Rolling, 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 rolling.
Whoa, Rawhide! Whoa there, boy! Whoa!
Well, howdy. Did you get those longhorns bedded down?
Yes, sir, Mr. Flavor. But you ain't gonna believe what I just seen.
Just calm down, boy. Pour yourself a cup of this T-Bone's coffee, and then you can tell me about it.
I just seen Marshal John Wainwright driving a bunch of cattle.
No, that's a herd of cattle.
Well, of course I've heard of cattle. Everyone here's heard of cattle. Heck, that's why they're here tonight.
No, a cattle herd.
What do I care what cattle herd? I ain't got nothing to hide from the dudes.
Well, you know, it's not too surprising about Marshal Wainwright driving cattle. Big John, he drove many a herd up the trail before he pinned on that U.S. Marshal's badge.
Well, that ain't all of it by half, Mr. Flavor. I just seen Marshal Wainwright drive a herd down the trail.
Down the trail? From Kansas to Texas? Well, everyone else is driving cattle up the trail. That don't make sense.
And there's more.
Hello, the cap.
Well, Big John Wainwright, welcome.
Dill Flavor. Should have known you'd be ramrodding this outfit.
You remember my top hand, Howdy Rates?
Think so. Fella kind of reminds me of me when I was young and full of spit and vinegar.
Now, what's this Howdy was telling me that you're driving a herd down the trail?
And that ain't all, Mr. Flavor. The whole herd is black. Blacker than a chuck wagon skillet.
Black? Well, I've heard of such, but I've never seen a black longhorn.
That ain't all. They ain't longhorns.
Shorthorns. You driving shorthorn cattle, John?
They ain't shorthorns neither. Matter of fact, they ain't got no horns at all.
They don't have any horns.
That's what I said. No horns at all. Dangest critters you ever did see.
All that true, John? You're driving a herd of black cattle, what have no horns, down the trail to Texas?
Oh, that's about the size of it, Dill.
Well, tell me about these cattle.
Well, they're Black Angus, about the finest breed of cattle I ever came across.
They just don't look right to me.
Well, that's what I thought. First time I saw them, it was back in 1873. A fella named Grant had a couple of Black Angus bulls at the Kansas City Livestock Exposition. Said he just brought them over from Scotland. Well, they looked mighty strange to me, and some of the other fellas was laughing at them. But I had just pinned on a 10-star, getting out of the cattle business. Didn't pay them Black Angus much more thought.
So, what changed your mind?
Well, things lately are getting a mite peaceable, too civilized. I haven't had to shoot a man in 8 or 10 days. My trigger finger has fallen asleep. I was passing through Tombstone Why, they'd put up a roller skating rink over the OK Corral. Rode into Dodge City. Biggest excitement there was the Friday night high school dodgeball tournament. Wandered into the Long Branch Saloon for a drink. Well, they turned that place into a steak restaurant. Well, I sat down and ordered a steak. Oh, I'm gonna tell you, it was that first bite that changed everything. Now, you know, if it had been Longhorn, well, I'd have chawed on that bite for nigh half an hour. When I finally swallowed, I'd have concluded the taste wasn't worth all the effort. But this beef, why, it was tender and juicy, delicately marbled, downright delicious. Best steak I ever had. I asked what kind of beef it was. Fella said, Black Angus.
Now, mister, I ain't ever tasted beef that was tender, tasty, and delicious. I reckon this heat has scrambled your brains. That is, if you got enough brains to grease a skillet.
Son, when wiser men are talking, might be a good idea to grit your teeth and listen.
Now, Marshall's right, Howdy. You know, you can learn a heap of stuff if you'll just keep your ears washed. You go on, John.
Well, the fella said that since '73, they brought more than 1,200 head of Black Angus into the country. Said they're doing real good. The dark coloring helps prevent sunburn. Cows never seem to have any problem giving birth. And after that, well, they hardly ever need any attention. One more thing, why, the beef. The beef is tender, tasty, juicy. I can personally certify it's that way every time. And one last thing, the fella said that just crossbreeding Black Angus to any inferior breed tends to bring out all these choice characteristics in the offspring. So right then and there, well, I had a kind of a vision of value. Now, why shouldn't I reap the benefits of these fine Black Angus? Well, things are changing. I saw the possibilities of profit in this breed. Decided it was time I get back in the cattle business, drive a herd of Black Angus down the trail to Texas.
Mister, I heard a lot of men tell all they know and keep on talking, but I reckon your story's a whole lot taller than it is wide.
Well, you better slack off of me, Pilgrim. Since no one ever taught you to respect your elders, I may have to teach you to respect your betters.
Well, go ahead, make my day.
Well, a man's got to know his limitations. Son, I've tolerated you because you're young. And like most young fellas, well, you tend to think you're the toughest hombre west of any place east. You think you can swallow nails and spit out tacks. But I'm gonna tell you something. Want you to listen tight. I'm a tough piece of gristle to chaw. You take a bite of me, you'll find out I'm true grit.
You just rest easy, Howdy. Marshall Wainwright here, well, he's as straight up as a wagon tongue, and you can take anything that he says to the bank.
It just ain't right, Mr. Flavor. Longhorns are the cattle of Texas. These hornless critters don't belong in the Lone Star State.
Oh, like I was saying, Howdy, things are changing, getting civilized all over.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what I think. When we get these Longhorns to Kansas, I'm going to sell them off and buy me a herd of them Black Angus cattle, and we're going to drive them back down the trail to Texas.
I can't do it, Mr. Flavor. I just can't do it. I can't live in a civilized world where people eat tender, juicy Black Angus instead of tough Texas Longhorns. I'm going to go someplace where it's still wild and woolly.
Now, just where do you think you're going to go that's still wild and woolly? Would that be Bolivia?
No, I heard tell of a place across the ocean that's still wild and woolly. They call it Italy.
I sure hope that boy likes spaghetti.
Or pepperoni. Now me? Oh, I'm gonna stay right here in the good old US of A and enjoy a tender, tasty black Angus steak. Cooked medium rare, about so big. That's about the size of it. Now I'm gonna tell you folks something. I want you to listen tight. When I came riding up the trail, I was looking for something. I didn't know what. Seems like you add up my life. I spent it all either stomping other men or in some cases getting stomped. It was like I was empty. Well, I'm not empty anymore. That's what's important. To feel useful in this old world. To hit a lick for what's right. Say a word against what's wrong. Even though you get walloped for saying that word. Now, I may sound like a Bible beater yelling up a revival at a river crossing camp meeting. You know what I mean there, Milford. But that don't change the truth none. There's right and there's wrong. You gotta do one or the other. You do the one and you're living. You do the other. You may be walking around, but you're as dead as that beaver jacket. Now, you folks have set out to raise $11 million. That's a pretty good sum in anybody's bank. But who is all that money for? Well, I'm gonna tell you. It's for you, for that vision of value you have for yourselves. So you, your family, and your descendants can reap the benefits of your black Angus cattle in the challenging times to come. Now we're burning daylight. Time to move on to the most important part of this evening, the auction. Bob Funk says he wants to raise $250,000 tonight, and we've got the goods to do it. But it's up to you. If you're willing to hit a lick for what's right, take a stand for that vision of value, we can do it. For someone who's kind of short on words, I've been talking a whole lot. So let's bring out our auctioneer, Colonel Tommy Williams. And when he starts the bidding, oh, I better see a whole lot of hands reaching for the sky,
All right, Colonel, let's get things rolling here. Let's head them up and move them out.